And we are live this week with Matt Hunt, the SEO consultant at BuiltVisible. He has joined us on our SEO Career Mastery webinar this week. We are so excited to have you. And Matt, has anyone ever told you that you have a celebrity name? I feel so fancy saying, welcome, Matt Hunt, to the podcast.
That's the first time anyone's ever said that.
First time.
I thought it was quite the opposite.
But yeah, no, we really
I'll take
grateful
it.
to have
I'll
you
take
on.
it. Thanks.
You'll take it. We're really grateful to have you on the podcast this week. Yeah, very excited to get your advice and your insights on the industry and your career progression in the industry overall. So I think we're going to start off with a little bit of a easier question. Can you sort of guide us through how you got into SEO and maybe what sparked your interest, and I guess take us through maybe a mini timeline of how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, sure. It's quite a convoluted journey, actually. So it was back in 2010. I was in the Marines, and we just literally got internet in our room, and I was getting into the whole sort of like affiliate marketing space. And then my brother said to me, he said, I'm gonna buy this website, historyofbodybuilding.org, and you can write the content and then see what happens. So he bought the website. I basically got the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding by Arnold Schwarzenegger and sort of like retyped it into one page, and then started ranking, getting loads of traffic. Got the ads removed because he was being too aggressive with it. Then it was like kind of like, oh, what's the point in that? So let that kind of eventually go. But from there, it sparked an interest, and I started dabbling in WordPress and things. Left the Marines, went private security contracting, and I still started like learning stuff. Like I would get a textbook about CSS and HTML, and just like use that with a browser and no internet connection to learn how to sort of like build basic web pages whilst on a merchant vessel going through the Red Sea, that type of thing. And then eventually left that to get like a proper office job. Couldn't really get one because everyone's looking for 2 years experience in SEO. So I kind of went down the recruitment route, as you're all familiar with, and then went sort of like leveraged recruitment into recruitment marketing, and then eventually leveraged that into getting a job agency side in SEO. So I think agency side is what you have to really do to sort of like get the experience up, to sort of get more exposure to more problems. And then when agency side, moved to London and then progressed from there. And here I am now. Had a little stint in-house, but going back agency side / contracting.
Did you always, at what point did you sort of officially realize that SEO was what it was, and sort of did you have this goal that you wanted to go straight into SEO, or was there like a specific moment that sparked that?
No, I was keeping my options open. I was by no means sort of like fixated on just SEO. I was quite interested in just marketing as a general discipline, and quite entrepreneurial. I missed out the step in between me doing the security contracting and trying to set up my own property below market value sourcing business, which was a complete disaster.
Okay.
I left that one out. So I've always, and that involved a bit of sort of like marketing, but
yeah,
really like knocking on people's doors and stuff, and leaflet deliveries. But we won't go into that. We'll save that for another day. So it's always been like an interest of mine, like marketing, from there. But I was keeping options open. Right, I went into recruitment thinking, that could be a good option.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Of course it is. It's a great option.
How big was there like a wake up call when you did switch into the agency side of things? Was there anything that you thought, oh, obviously you built up a bit of knowledge doing like your own stuff, on the side, but was there anything that you realized, oh, I don't have as strong as knowledge I thought in this particular area when you joined an agency?
I think that's a perpetual journey on SEO. I think the more you learn, the more you know, the more you find out that oh God, I'm completely butchering this. The more you know, the more you find out you need to know more. That's my George W. Bush version of that phrase. So basically, yeah, it's just an ever-learning journey, which is a good thing if you like that type of thing. It's probably a bad thing if you don't.
Definitely, and because I've chatted to a few people recently who either very similar situations to what you went through, moving into SEO at the minute, or have done their own had their own company and done a lot of sort of SEO and marketing for that company, and are now looking to move into agency setup. Is there any sort of pieces of advice you would give to them, or any sort of golden nuggets to sort of settle in a bit quicker or hit the ground running?
Yeah, I'd say it's more of a case of like which agency you want to join. Depending on where you're located, like London's a great place for SEO opportunities, but if you wanted to really get deep into the channel and learn and sort of like derive as much value as possible and how it can drive value, I would recommend joining like a boutique SEO agency, rather like BuiltVisible, who are recruiting at the moment, by the way, for a senior SEO executive. So there we
Do you
go.
need a hand with that recruitment?
Maybe, I don't know. You could put the link in the comments. I don't know. You have to speak to someone else. But yeah, by joining a boutique SEO agency, basically you have to get results. Whereas one of the bigger networks, like WPP, it's kind of like SEO is sometimes a bolt-on, and you're sort of maybe doing the work rather than doing like big strategical work. So I would definitely recommend sort of joining a bespoke SEO agency. But also it depends what you want to do as well. Like if you want to eventually go freelance, probably want to think about like what clients those agencies are servicing. Because chances are, if you're going to go freelance in like X amount of years, you're not going to be working with like blue chip enterprise clients that would just sign a bolt-on for a WPP agency. So you want to like work for a smaller agency that works with sort of more SMEs. I would suggest.
Brilliant.
But also,
just sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, when you do get your foot in the door as well, it's critical that you look at like the work that you're doing, so that 2 years experience is actually like 2 years of good experience, and it's not 6 months experience 4 times. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that when you go to one of these sort of cookie cutter agencies, that's what you're probably going to get in a lot of cases.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen that actually quite a lot with people coming, maybe starting their career with sort of the bigger agencies and not necessarily focusing down on a particular section, maybe doing a bit of content, a bit of technical, but not really specializing or sort of excelling in any of them, which does make it tougher if they want to go down maybe a more sort of technical route. Like it kind of leads on to what I was going to ask you next. You started, or you did a period there in sort of account management, and then ended up making a move into the technical side of things. That's, well, from what I've seen and chatting to a lot of people, that's on the sort of very end of the spectrum from one another. Like account management, obviously a lot of sort of client facing, technical usually sort of more in the background, sort of working by yourself or with a smaller team. How did you make that switch, or was technical always sort of the end goal?
Yeah, it's more of a case of just naming conventions for job titles. Like SEO account manager is not necessarily like client services. But it can, the work can vary depending on like what client you have. It just so happened that sort of a lot of the stuff I was doing was quite more focused, and so that's how I kind of like made the step over like that. Whereas, yeah, if it was more like client services, client facing all the time, like probably would have lacked the skills to make that jump into like a decent technical SEO consultancy that BuiltVisible, for sure.
Brilliant.
What aspects of tech SEO do you enjoy from other, I guess, disciplines?
I suppose the most enjoyable aspect is sort of like working.
Not speaking to people.
It's not like you have to speak to people, like that's you can't escape that. Like
you were trying to like think about another question there, another answer.
Yeah. No, essentially, I don't know. It's just like working on larger sites is part and parcel of technical SEO. Like smaller sites don't really need technical SEO. So when I did my stint in-house, I was kind of like going for more a content-led approach. So I'm not like specifically like glued to the idea of technical SEO is the way. It's just more of a case of that's how I've just found myself in this position, and working on bigger e-commerce sites like what you would call decentralized sites with lots of product pages, product landing pages. I mean, it's quite good because the little changes can make larger impacts, whereas if you're working on smaller sites, technical SEO doesn't really have much impact at all. I wouldn't say at all. There's diminishing returns after a bit.
Yeah. So has there been any, like, I guess, prevalent bottlenecks that you may have been experienced in the past, I guess, 6 months to a year, anything current that you are struggling with? And I think to add to that, the question of, has the developments in AI this year as well affected how you've worked this year, or improved how you've worked?
Yeah, so to answer the first question, in terms of like bottlenecks, I don't know if this is a blanket rule, but generally speaking, bottleneck in technical SEO is almost always development resource, which I think that's a general, which can be overcome with a good enough business case. And also, I found that if you kind of speak the product manager language, that can help navigate those issues to a certain extent, because the product manager is often sort of running the product sprint, product being the website. And then, you know, if you're sort of like talking in business cases and their sort of language, then you know, that's a good way of overcoming that. In terms of like personal bottlenecks in more recent cases would be, if you're going to more of a content-led approach, editorial resource is the one that's really gonna shoot you in the foot there, for sure. So when you're dealing with, you know, if you choose to go in-house, and it's a smaller site that's going to rely on content rather than PDPs, PLPs. So going back to the decentralized model being e-commerce versus a centralized model where you're basically selling one product. That's generally, you're going to go for like a content-led approach there. But if you don't have, if the team's not aligned on sort of like SEO goals and on board with the editorial processes that need to happen to produce those pieces of content, like that's just gonna completely not work in my recent experience this year. Yeah, but and to answer the AI question, that's the next one. So it was like a two in one that 2-in-1 question. That one. So.
Yeah, double whammy.
Yeah, double whammy. That's it.
Yeah.
So obviously everyone's like talking about it on the Chat GPT, things like that. There are some very interesting use cases which I can see how freelancers or agencies can scale their time by leveraging this AI technology. For example, I'll give you just a taster of what I was doing just an hour or so ago. Okay, I am by no means a Pythonista. I've dabbled around in it historically. It's always taken me hours to do stuff because you have to like go on Stack Overflow and then check this and check that. But like this morning, for example, I just wanted to make a little regex tool that put little pipes in between my keywords just to produce the input swiftly. So that's like a 5-minute job on Chat GPT, and then get the code, whack it in Jupyter notebook, and then you've got yourself a little tool like that. Whereas before, that would have even taken me so long to do, it wouldn't be worth the hassle because it's a small job. Or I would have started it and I would have got to the iterate that I had to iterate on it a second time. I would have got to the second iteration and I would just be like, sorry, it's not worth the effort. And then chuck that out the window and not bother with it. But ChatGPT, for example, that would pretty much mitigate against those sort of like problems, and you can knock up like easy little apps to solve niggly time problems like that. And then if you're working for an agency, you're not going to be the only person with that problem, so it scales like that. So it's a very useful agency tool because people have the same problems repeatedly and they're selling the same products to customers.
Do you think that juniors that are entering the market, with the AI tools that are coming out now, do you think that they should still place a lot of emphasis on learning foundations before working with AI tools, or just go straight into working with AI tools?
Yeah, you need the foundations because you need to know what kind of you're doing. I don't think I'd be able to use ChatGPT if I didn't know sort of like basic
background
Python. And you sort of also got to think of it, it's like Excel. It's just a tool at the end of the day. So I think Excel is always going to be a useful tool to learn. But I think ChatGPT, where you can get a plugin for Excel that uses it, those tools like Screaming Frog in Excel and basic pandas for Python, things like that, you still got to learn because if you want ChatGPT to chat about to write about SEO, like the stuff it comes out with is utter trash. You wouldn't like it's useless. You wouldn't write that for a client because it's just drivel, and it's basically because they're getting all the drivel from the internet about SEO over here, and then just using it to sort of like train their language model, and as a result, it's sort of untrustworthy. So you need to know what good looks like.
Definitely. And Matt, you mentioned just before in the first part of Shrey's 2 questions about sort of the team and the importance of having the right team to align to meet your sort of goals and stuff. Is there, obviously you've had the fortunate opportunity of working with a couple of great companies, but is there a sort of ideal team structure that comes to mind? Or if you maybe join a company that you think, they're lacking maybe a strong dev team or something like that, is there an ideal team structure in your head?
I don't think it's a structure. I think you just I think it's more to do with what's the team's objectives, what's the team's goals, and are they all aligned on them? That would be more closely related to working client side. Agency side is more of a case of who who are you working with essentially? What is the ethos of the agency? Are they going to churn and burn through execs, just like sink or swim style, or are they a bit more methodical about process documentation? Do they have things in place like what BuiltVisible have as something called Career Architect, where you basically it's almost like joining up the dots to, if you want to get to X level, then you have to do X, Y, and Z to a satisfactory standard, just having more of a roadmap for progression rather than the actual structure. So I don't think the actual structure matters so much, really.
No, that's perfect. I know it probably depends on the clients and stuff like that you have as well, and what they're after.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about clients, I suppose sort of flatter is probably better as a rule, as in having worked client side and seeing how difficult it can be to actually like get stuff done. You probably want like you don't really want your sort of like sponsor to then have to jump through loads of hoops to get stuff done for you. It's better to work directly with a product owner or product manager, or work directly with sort of like someone higher up in the marketing side of the business, so they can basically, get the stuff done, because that's where probably most retainers go awry, is you end up doing loads of deliverables and then they don't get done because you're working with a team that has to get permission of several other teams.
Perfect.
I have like a double whammy question again. So the first part is, what are, I guess, 3 characteristics that you look for in an ideal team lead? And what are 3 characteristics that I think a tech SEO should possess? Or you think a tech SEO should possess?
Okay. For a team lead,
or disciplines, either or, whichever direction you want to take that in.
All right. Come on, it's getting complicated, these questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, team lead. I think emotional intelligence is critical, really. You don't want someone who's going to be like panicking over something small, because if you start panicking over everything, then if something generally does happen, it's just like, oh, panicking again, or having a lack of empathy or something like that. I believe that's that's critical emotional intelligence, and sort of like trust in the people who they're line managing as well, because the opposite of that is like micromanagement, which is I don't think is good as well, because that sort of like goes back to the same sort of way of how you would end up doing 6 months experience 4 times rather than 2 years of experience, because you just like following a process and then that's it, and then you're not encouraged to like think problems through yourself, because the chances are that process is not perfect. So we've got emotional intelligence, trusting. Number 3 for a team lead. I think as well, you do still need to be learning your craft, and so that would involve learning from someone who's basically been there and done it and can sort of like talk you through technical problems and help you find the solution to those. Because there is a sort of like, there is one theory that our managers don't have to be that like skilled. They just have to be good managers, which I don't know. I mean, I can see that in some cases when you get further up,
Mhm.
yeah, that's fine. But if you're talking like team lead level, then they need to be able to help people for problems, and they need to be able to pass their knowledge on to other people, and so those other people would then stay in the job because they're learning. If they're not learning from their team lead, then it's like, where are you learning from? That's probably how people end up leaving. And for technical SEOs, I would say curiosity is definitely a big one. Like, there's so much misinformation out there, and people just sort of like repeating things like, I don't know, talking about crawl budget on small websites. But people have to basically be able to ask why is that an issue? It's becoming more important as well in this sort of like in this commercial environment as well, is actually being able to sort of like have a wider understanding of business objectives and how SEO can work with that, rather than just saying, I suppose it's an example because I watched your guest yesterday actually, and he was giving 404s as an example, Eli Schwartz, and just saying like, okay, yeah, 404s, brilliant, but you need to be able to say why 404s are an issue. It's not just like, oh, let's just get a screaming frog report and say, oh, you have to do these 20 things, because most of them basically aren't going to make any difference whatsoever. And I think a bit of an understanding about front end and back end technology in general, like how databases sort of work with front ends and things like that. I think an appreciation of that gives you an appreciation of how difficult problems are to fix for developers. And then from there, you're not going to say these are the SEO requirements for something like this, and just make up these long list of requirements, which is then just like really difficult to do from like a back end, front end point of view, and diminishing returns after a certain level of complexity. So you want to be able to deduce your sort of requirements down to something that's palatable for the dev queue.
Brilliant. And Matt, I know you've been obviously with BuiltVisible for quite a while. What do you guys do to sort of instill that culture that obviously retains? There's a lot of strong talent working for the company. So what sort of culture or sort of communication techniques do you use to sort of maintain those sort of top talent?
I mean, I don't know. I did leave and then come back again, so maybe it's a little bit awkward.
Came back.
No, there are some things in place that make it like there's a reason why I came back, and here's things like, generally, I think the leadership from the top is strong. Like the ethos around that, they really don't encourage you to burn yourself out at all, and that's something that they always look to improve on. If they're sort of like dropping the ball in some places, they'll sort of reevaluate and get better. Whereas some other agencies they're kind of like a bit churn and burn type models. Like I was alluding to the career architect before as well. I think for the permanent members of staff here, like I believe that's a really good thing to have in place to sort of guide people's careers, and because sometimes you don't know what you have to learn to progress, and that just leaves a big question mark about things. And they retain a lot of really good clients as well, doing really decent work. So that's kind of why that's what's keeping me around for sure, and just getting involved in there. Like the work is good, and you do work with other people who are like good people who are skilled at what they do as well. So that's what you want to do. You want to work with people who are good and have high standards.
Exactly. It makes everybody's life a bit easier.
Yeah, exactly. It is a standards thing at the end of the day.
Just to end off on, I guess, a little bit of a positive note, is there, I guess, any small tidbits of advice you would give to a junior SEO or an SEO looking to go towards the tech direction, I guess, that are watching this and looking to specialize?
Yeah. This might be a bit controversial. I'd say might have to consider moving to London. I think maybe. I don't know. People might think that's controversial. But yeah, I just think it's not necessarily London, but somewhere like Manchester or Leeds or London, somewhere where there's lots of different places doing it. Yeah, because I don't think are there any like bespoke tech agencies? Well, there are, of course, scattered around the UK, but there's not like a density of opportunity where you're gonna find yourself like, let's say, for example, okay, I can't remember the name, but there's a decent agency in like Hertfordshire called Honcho. I guess they're decent. They seem like very nice people, like swept together. Nice content online. I'm just assuming they're good, all right, for the basis of argument. You were kind of like living around somewhere like that, and you couldn't really like get a job in London. Like what other agencies are there if that's not working out for you, or if you want to progress further? It's a bit tricky. So I think if you're younger as well, you want to like, I think it's better to bite the bullet and go live in a scummy house in Clapham and sort of like, grizz it out for a bit and sort of learn your SEO craft.
Do you think that's still the? Sorry, I was going to be a sort of devil's advocate. Do you think that's still the case with sort of fully remote roles going around so popular now at the minute?
Yeah, I don't know. You're probably more qualified to say, but I like, if I'm searching around for remote roles, I'm not seeing that much density of remote roles. And there's a very strong argument when you're younger that you probably you do want to get to the office a little bit,
Definitely.
just like twice a week, and kind of like learn from people who are more experienced than you, because you're just not gonna get that in your tucked away in a little bedroom somewhere in some village.
Osmosis.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's like learning from osmosis. What they call the water cooler moments. Those types of things. So there would be that, which would open up like opportunities for you, and get onto Alida Solis's website, learningseo.co. Is it? Go through that, polish up your Excel skills, and I think I believe there's diminishing returns to this. But probably like start a side project when you're younger. I think
definitely
it probably, it shows willing. I don't think it matters so much when you sort of like get deeper in, because you've got the experience, but just get the experience where you can get it. But you always can use Excel.
Okay, perfect. Definitely. Yeah, awesome. Thank you for answering all of our points on point. And gave some really incredible insight into the industry, and for any SEOs that are watching as well. So yeah, thank you so much for joining. Our time has run up. We are just 5 minutes over. Sorry about the 5 minutes extra. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us, and hope you have a lovely weekend, and we will chat soon, Matt.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on, Matt.
Yeah, have a nice weekend.
Cheers.
Cheers.